that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
Trump seems angry. He seems angry. He seems livid at the break of the ceasefire. Both the Israelis and the Iranians have now violated the ceasefire, and Trump has basically warned the Israelis to turn their planes back and to respect the ceasefire, not to retaliate on Iran. So that's the big news that's happening now. The truth is, though, that last night, hours and hours and hours before the ceasefire, this chart actually gave us a hint that there was going to be a ceasefire. All this market action of the oil chart, this is on the hourly chart, all this market action actually happened way before the ceasefire, and only like hours and hours and hours after that did we actually get the ceasefire in effect, where Donald Trump said the ceasefire is now in effect, please don't violate it. And that was what Trump actually said. And that wasn't the only thing that actually changed last night and is giving us these green markets, right? There were major changes last night, and I want to talk to you about the major changes. Some of them are war related, some of them are not war related, but either way, there were major changes last night, and those major changes are super bullish for crypto, specifically for altcoins. Makes me really believe in our thesis that yesterday was the bottom for altcoins, and I want to show you everything that I saw. There's like 5 reasons or 5 shifts, seismic shifts that actually happened last night. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to talk about the war and the ceasefire, but I want to talk about 5 other things that changed last night that are extremely bullish for altcoins. And I'm going to show you exactly what they are. All right, that sounds good. Let's go. 𝗙, the man was angry. Crazy. I mean, I haven't seen Trump like that. Anyway, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about all that. But more than that, I actually want to talk more about crypto and markets and altcoins, because I think there's a lot going on. There's been a seismic shift in the market, a major shift in the market. And I want to spend some time going through that. So I've got a lot to get through today. So I think the best thing is if you guys could just do me a favor, obliterate the like button. I'm going to bring you guys a ton of alpha this show. We're going to talk about altcoins, we're going to talk about Bitcoin, we're going to talk about golden crosses and a whole lot of other things that are actually happening in the markets. All really good news. As you can see, Bitcoin back at 105 pre-war levels. ETH though not back above pre-war levels. Sol though not back above pre-war levels, and that's one of the things that's actually happening out there. Let's actually review what happened in the last 24 hours. I mean, in the last 24 hours, crazy things happened. The first thing is we saw the oil price break down out of nowhere last night. And as soon as that oil price broke down out of nowhere, you'll remember that I've been calling this chart the war line. And I've said that as soon as oil breaks down below this war line, this war will pretty much be over. So as soon as I saw that yesterday, I quickly went onto Twitter and I tweeted and I said, this war is over. When that chart broke down, the oil price, the chart of the oil price told us that the war was pretty much over. You got to remember that smart money is the money that actually moves the markets, right? And the smart money doesn't trade on the headlines. The headlines usually come way after the smart money actually happens, right? Once that happened, a few hours later, Trump announced a ceasefire. Then that's when Trump came out and he said, look, Iran has officially responded. And Iran responded with like this crazy attack where they actually even warned the US about the attack via Qatar. They actually warned the US about the attack. So it was more like a symbolic attack. It was like, look, we're going to attack you just so we don't really get humiliated. We're going to attack you guys. And then the war will be over. And that's exactly what happened. We got a ceasefire. Trump announced, congratulations to everyone, has fully agreed between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire in about 6 hours, when Israel and Iran would have to wind down and completed their final missions for the last 12 hours. Guys, can we turn this light away from my face? There's this light which is in my eyes today. I don't know why. And that's when that ceasefire actually happened. The markets responded beautifully. You can see the Bitcoin price shot up back to 105, which is almost back to ceasefire levels. You can more. Just get out of. Yeah, there we go. The altcoins also amazing. You can see the altcoins flying. Look at 𝗙 today. Look at 𝗙 flying today. We're actually going to talk about 𝗙, because 𝗙 is one of the tokens that actually I want to speak about. Injective up 20%. I want to speak about that one. Let's see in the next 200. 𝗙 up 34%. Is it back over 80 cents? Yes, it is back over 80 cents. Amazing. So we're going to talk about all those altcoins. Let's talk about the ceasefire. So the oil price told us the ceasefire was going to end. The truth is, though, that the war was basically finished. And the reason why I said that the war was basically finished is because, look, the main aim of this war, on paper, was to get rid of Iran's nuclear powers. And I think that after the US joined the war and bombed bombed Iran and bombed the nuclear facilities with those fancy bombers, I think at that point, the nuclear facility was basically gone. And then the truth is that there was a decision for the US to make. They could go for a full regime change. But if they wanted to go for a full regime change, that would mean having to put boots on the ground, just like they did in Iraq, just like they did in Afghanistan, just like they did in Libya. They would have to put boots on the ground. And if they did put boots on the ground when that actually happened, then that would mean a long and drawn out ground war, right? And so I fully agree here with David Sachs, who says, look, a regime change was always a fantasy. You can't collapse a regime with air power alone. It takes boots on the ground and occupation, which is never going to happen. Neocons have been exposed as delusional warmongers yet again. And the reality is, again, the US, I mean, they could go for a full regime change, but the reality is they've got what they want out of this. And what they want out of this is they wanted Iran to end their nuclear power. Iran's basically on its knees. The nuclear power is gone. And now there's really not much left to fight for. Not from Israel's point of view and not from the US's point of view, right? The existential threat, that threat of Israel being removed off the map using nuclear powers or Iran having nuclear powers and being able to strike in the area, that's pretty much gone. And a few hours ago, or a few minutes ago actually, Trump was actually interviewed outside.
In all fairness, Israel unloaded a lot, and now I hear Israel just went out because they felt it was violated by one rocket that didn't land anywhere. That's not what we want, I'll tell you, and I'm telling you, I'm not happy about that, Israel, either.
Are you going to tell that
All I do is play both sides. I'm going now, as you know, to NATO. Some of you are going with me, and I think it's going to be successful. We'll see. I'll let you know.
And so now the thing is, we have the ceasefire that was actually in place, right? And Trump basically said, look, guys, there's a ceasefire in place. Please don't violate it. What happened? Well, both sides actually landed up violating it. So Iran sent a whole lot of missiles to Israel. Israel responded by sending planes back. And Trump basically said, Israel, do not drop those bombs. If you do, it's a major violation. Bring your pilots home. And he said, Donald J. Trump. That's what he basically signed it. Israel, then I don't know if this happened after this, but there was one more strike. And Israel said, there's going to be one more strike. And I think that Trump agreed to the one more strike. Anyway, look, regardless, I think the long story short here is this war is over. The war is over, or at least the oil price is telling us that this war is over for now. You can see oil retreated way below the war line, also way below the 200-day moving average. So way below the war line, way below the 200-day moving average. Actually, according to 𝗙𝗍, oil is now below where it was before Israel struck. So now, essentially, this war is pretty much over. As I predicted yesterday, and I was quite vocal about it, I said yesterday, and I got a lot of, I must say, I got a lot of hate for this yesterday. Yesterday, I said, there's going to be a V-shaped recovery. The war doesn't matter. There's going to be a crypto V-shaped recovery. If only you guys saw the amount of hate that I got in WhatsApp. How can you say there's going to be a V-shaped recovery? Altcoins are going to bleed. We're in the middle of war. I said, guys, there's going to be a V-shaped recovery. Fast forward 24 hours later, that's pretty much what the recovery actually looks like. I was quite vocal both there, and I was also vocal on my Instagram. I'll play this just
fast V-shaped recovery. This weekend, the USA officially
on my Instagram @CryptoManRun. I made a video about a V-shaped recovery.
Officially entered the war between Israel and Iran, and now the headlines are.
And I'm going to stick to that thesis. I'm going to stick to the thesis that number one, we're going to get, or we have had, a fast V-shaped recovery. Number two, I'm going to stick to the thesis that yesterday was actually the bottom for altcoins. Now, that's quite a bold prediction, but for now, I'm going to stick to the thesis that yesterday was the bottom for the altcoin pairs, and I'm going to show you in a second why. Because yesterday, to me, it was like a major seismic shift in world events, right? And when I say a major seismic shift in world events, number one, the Israel-Iran war was completely, well, I won't say completely over, but there's a ceasefire in place. And for now, I think, again, both sides are going to start respecting the ceasefire. So the first thing is, that's quite a seismic shift. That impacts the oil price. The oil price impacts inflation and everything else, and all the different implications. Then on top of that, there's something else that actually happened. You had multiple, and I said multiple Fed officials have now come out and said, it's time to actually start reducing rates, believe it or not. So we went from, in July, not expecting an interest rate cut to at least 3 or 4 Fed officials coming out in the last 24 hours and saying, it's actually time to start cutting interest rates. So believe it or not, like this happened in the last 24 hours, completely coincidental. Oil price went down. Then you've got Fed Governor Mike Berman. This is coming from a reliable source. This is coming from 𝗕𝗤𝗓𝗏, who's the guy that's actually called the Fed Whisperer. He says, should inflation pressures remain contained, I would support lowering the policy rate as soon as our next meeting in order to bring it closer to its neutral setting. So that's the first guy. That's a guy called Mike Berman. Then you've got another one, 𝗙𝗂𝗓𝗏, and he says the tariffs pretty much have had no effect. And because the tariffs have pretty much had no effect in increasing prices, he says he's pretty much ready to support rate cuts. So he says, if we do not see inflation resulting from these tariff increases, in my mind, we never left what I was calling the golden path. And basically he's saying, ready to reduce rates. Then there was a speech which came out of the Fed, Vice Chair for Supervision, Michelle J. Bowman. And in the speech, they were talking about, before our next meeting in July, we'll have received 1 additional month of employment and inflation data. If the upcoming inflation data continues to evolve favorably with upward pressure remaining limited to goods prices, or if we see signs that softer spending is spilling over into the weak labor market, such development should be addressed in our policy decision. And basically, I would support lowering the policy rate in our next meeting. Okay, cool. That's 3. Then there's another one, Waller. Waller says the Fed could cut interest rates as soon as July. So now all of a sudden, you've got 4 Fed officials coming out and saying, hey, maybe we should cut rates before the next meeting. So what does it look like for July? So for July, currently, 30, let's actually just go to the current. So okay, 16.5% chance of a rate cut. The reason why that's just changed, I'll show you in a second, is because Powell's actually speaking. So they're talking about rate cuts. The Fed's actually starting to talk about rate cuts. I'm just going to refresh this so we can get a more accurate one of these. Okay, so let's just go to here. Okay, so we're talking about 1 rate cut, 2 rate cuts, back to 2. So earlier on, it was on 3 rate cuts this year. The reason why this has jumped is because Powell's actually testifying, which we'll talk about in a second. And that's a big deviation from this dot plot, right? Now you've got 4 Fed officials actually talking about rate cuts. That wasn't the only thing that actually changed yesterday. I'll show you something else that actually changed yesterday. The other thing is, remember today, we have the Fed with a special meeting. So this is an open meeting to discuss the proposed revisions to the SLR. The SLR is a supplementary leverage ratio. In a nutshell, what the supplementary leverage ratio is it is a minimum leverage requirement that the banks, or minimum capital requirements that the big banks need to keep to almost keep themselves more solvent and more stable, right? And they break up the banks into various categories, but there are banks which are intertwined with the global financial system, and the capital threshold there is 5%, which means that they've got to have 5% in what they call tier 1 assets. What they're trying to do here, and it's a massive reform. It's a reform that started because of the 2008 housing collapse, right? And the idea was to make sure that the banks are well capitalized and face less risk of being closed down. But that meant that the banks couldn't invest as much or take as many risks, right? One of the biggest things here is that they're looking to remove treasuries from this capital ratio. Now, the result of that would be that banks, so the real key is here, SLR exemption will give banks the green light to exclude treasuries from their leverage limits. That means that they can buy unlimited US debt without holding extra capital. Now, obviously, this move is designed it was designed by Scott Bessent, obviously. And the reason why it was designed is because he wants people buying US treasuries. And if he takes this SLR exemption away from treasuries with the banks, then effectively the banks can just keep buying treasuries without it affecting their ratios. And if that happens and you've got more buyers for treasuries, if you've got more buyers for treasuries, the treasury rates drop. And that means financing of the US debt becomes a whole lot cheaper. That is a major seismic thing. That meeting is happening sometime today. It's Wednesday, so it's tomorrow. Tomorrow, the 25th of June, that meeting's actually happening. Also yesterday, the banks removed, the Fed removed the reputational risk from the bank rules. Now, in the old days, up until like now, the banks could decide not to do certain things because of what they called reputational risk. And one of the things that they could do is they could reject crypto investment or reject companies that had crypto because of the reputational risk that it gives the banks. Now the Fed has actually removed it. So the Fed announces that reputational risk will no longer be a component of the examination programs in its supervision of banks, which means that the banks actually have one less excuse to debank or not to get involved in crypto. They don't have that excuse anymore. So Cynthia Lummis, who's obviously been heading the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve Act, said, in February, I exposed the Fed's aggressive reputation risk policies that assassinated American Bitcoin and digital asset businesses. Today, the Fed announced it will scrap the reputational risk in its factor. This is a win, but there is still more work to be done. So that is, those are like some of the shifts. That's not the total shift. There's massive, much bigger shifts that I want to talk to you about. So those are some of the shifts. We also have Powell testifying at 10 a.m. EST. Starts in 15 minutes. Obviously, Trump trolling him before. He says, too late. Jerome Powell of the Fed will be in Congress today in order to explain, amongst many things, why he's refusing to lower the rate. Europe has had 10 rate cuts. We've had 0. No inflation, great economy. We should have at least 2 to 3 points lower, would save America $800 billion a year. That's like $1 trillion a year. What a difference this would make if things later change to the negative increase the rate. I hope Congress really works with this dumb, hard-headed person. Imagine being Powell, and every day you're being killed, but it's not like you're being killed by it's the president of the United States, and he's just throwing these bombs at you every day. Too late, Powell. What do you call you? A very dumb, hard-headed person. Jeepers. Josh, I think you're a very dumb, hard-headed person. How do you feel about that? I think you are quite hard-headed. I don't know if you're dumb, but you're definitely hard-headed. All right, so we have Powell, and he's testifying. That should happen. It starts in the next 15 minutes. We'll be done by then. All right, let's talk about altcoins. Yesterday, I told you guys that I think that the altcoins had definitely bottomed. Today, I'm doubling down on that bet, and I'm going to show you exactly what happened. I think yesterday was very much like a panic point for altcoins. And I think probably the best place to see that is to look at the Bitcoin dominance chart. You can see that over the weekend, people got really scared and they dumped their altcoins. And that sent the Bitcoin dominance up to like the cycle high, which is 66%. So that was pretty much where we landed up yesterday. And then we looked at this altcoin season indicator. And when we looked at the altcoin season indicator, you kind of realize that altcoins oscillate between outperforming Bitcoin and underperforming Bitcoin. And they've been doing it forever. I mean, this chart only goes back to 2017. But the oscillator goes forever and ever, right? So you can see here that like the lowest that it's been here was 8. Yesterday it was at 12, by the way. Here it went to 3. And so based on this and based on this chart over here, which was the others divided by BTC, this break below the trend line. I said yesterday that I think that this is an unusual move. And because it's an unusual move, I think that the altcoin market is pretty much bottomed, right? And I mean, you can see it today. Today we've got this V-shaped recovery. You've got like massive moves in the altcoin market. I think most notable is obviously 𝗙. And I really think we should spend a little bit of time talking about 𝗙. So we've been waiting for a 𝗙 season for a long time. And it looks like all the chips have basically been scattered around the table exactly for a perfect optimal 𝗙 season. I see a lot of videos being made. I see a lot of influencers talking about it. I see a lot of news in terms of top EVM chains on the move. Base still leads to 17.2 million, but 𝗙 network climbed to number 2. So there's a massive use case push. Top change by fee growth. 𝗙 features there. There's a company called Canary which filed for a 𝗙 ETF with staking. And, you know, we're going to get a whole lot of staking ETFs approved. Now, once the SEC approves for example, a Solana ETF was staking, it's going to be very, very, very difficult for them not to approve a Say one was staking or a Sui one was staking, right? Because they're all proof of stake coins, and they all have staking, and the staking is all pretty much the same. So these, I think that like if I look at the chart of Say, I don't usually buy tokens when they're 40% up, and I'm not saying that you should buy, but I do think that you should put this one onto your watch list, especially because Monad is supposed to launch. They keep kicking out the launch, so hard to say when Monad's going to launch. But when they do, that's really going to bring something to Say. From a pure charting point of view, like you've got this level over here. Once we break from this level over here, it starts to become like real blue sky until we get or like really not many like big technical resistance points. So I've got a position in Say. I've been holding it obviously for a long time. And I think now we're about to see some kind of recovery here, right? But that's not the only reason why I'm bullish, right? You can see, like, let's just look at some of the other ones. Injective up 20%, Virtual's up 18, 20%. I mean, look, on the one hand, we can look and we can celebrate these big moves up. But on the other hand, let's just look at them on the weekly. If you go to the weekly, you can see on the weekly, other than Say and Aerodrome, very few of them are actually up on the week because it's been a very brutal week for altcoins. Look at Grass, still down 20% for the week. Crazy, 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 crazy. Anyway, so let me show you why I'm even more particularly bullish now, specifically on the altcoins. One is, I always believe that you need to have a capitulation event before markets actually start moving up. And I kind of feel that like the reaction to this war was very much a capitulation event for altcoins. I saw people absolutely bleeding, etc. Then, if I just plainly look at the charts now, the reason why I look at the charts is because the truth is, like, the charts have really predicted everything. The ceasefire was predicted by the oil chart way, way, way before any ceasefire actually came into effect yesterday, right? Now, if I look at some other charts, so let's look at some other charts here. This is the ETH chart. If I look at the ETH chart and I unhide my 50 moving average and my 200 moving average, what you can see is that the ETH chart is about to go through a golden cross. And that's like the major big daddy of altcoins is about to go through a golden cross. Now, these golden crosses, as you can see, like generally, these golden crosses, specifically in an up market, usually mean big moves up. Like, let's just look at this golden cross over here. So you had the golden cross here. Let's just say that ETH was somewhere around there. That took us up on ETH 107%. You can see that we had another golden cross. Here we had a golden cross here. And from that point on, ETH was up 25%. We can go back. I mean, there was a golden cross over there, but I think the real golden cross actually happened somewhere over here, right? So you can see here that we had that golden cross here, and that golden cross took us all the way up here, 2,500%. So we have, from a pure charting point of view, there's a golden cross on ETH, which is the big daddy of altcoins. Then you've got another golden cross. You've got a golden cross of crypto total market cap excluding Bitcoin. So if you take out alts, so you basically say BTC altcoins excluding this. Here, there's a golden cross coming over here. Also, probably, I don't know, 3-4 days away. End of June, we should have a golden cross on the altcoins. And again, these golden crosses, pretty strong, pretty solid. Like, you can see that they actually do cause quite a big move. You saw 104% move, 42% move. That's on the entire altcoin sector, which is pretty big. Then you've got, if you look at this chart, this is just the Bitcoin chart with the RSI crossovers. And if you look at the Bitcoin chart with the RSI crossovers, every time that the RSIs do cross over, we get a little bit of a pump. And that's pretty much happening right now as we speak. So, and then the money supply chart that Raoul Paul's been speaking about, that's pretty much exactly on track. It's as if the money supply chart actually predicted the war. Like, that's pretty much where it is now. So that's like just some of the things that are actually happening. The other thing that's actually happening is, like, I think we've forgotten that very soon you're going to get like another big altcoin ETF. You're going to get the Solana ETF. The Solana ETF will probably be approved with staking. So you can see that the Federal Register 45-day comment period ends today, 23rd of June, or yesterday, which means that ETF can be approved at any time. So the Sol ETF is really, really, really close to being approved. 55% chance on poly markets, that SOL ETF will be approved by 31 July. By the way, I heard that poly markets, let me actually see. I think I saw something today. See if we can find it. I think they're raising at a $200 million valuation, poly markets. Just for those of you who, I mean, I follow poly markets. I think it's genius. They've also got a partnership with Twitter. I'm really waiting to see how they actually activate their partnership with Twitter, because that's going to be super interesting. Base also teasing. Base, the next chapter is coming July 16th. That should be good for the entire Base ecosystem. They're teasing that it's like the new chapter of Base. Now, initially when I read this, I thought, oh, wow, Base is launching a token. Okay, so Base is not launching a token. I confirmed that. What is this about? It says here from Coinbase, Brian Armstrong and creator of Base, 𝗕𝗫𝗍𝗏, and the new builders shaping what comes next. Then stick around to celebrate the start of on-chain summer. So they're teasing on-chain summer on Base, a new way to create a new social network, a global economy for everyone. I wonder what that means. A new way to create a new social network. So it looks like they're launching a new social network on Base. That's happening on July 16th. Obviously, we'll bring it to you when it actually happens. Yeah, but that's, I mean, so I think that should be good for the whole Base ecosystem. And when I look at the Base ecosystem, I mean, just generally, if you look at like, okay, so there's Brett up 15%. I saw virtuals, and the whole virtuals ecosystem was pretty much up. The whole AI agent ecosystem. I mean, the AI agent ecosystem still very much primarily lives, I think, between Base and Sol, but I think Base with virtuals is probably slightly in the lead. What else? What else happening with altcoins? Interestingly, we spoke about 𝗓 and Aptos were both in contest to help the Wyoming Stablecoin Permission. And the Wyoming Stablecoin Commission, the Wyoming Stable Token Commission, has placed Aptos as the highest scoring blockchain candidate for the first fiat-backed stablecoin issued by the United States. So looks like they're going to do it on Aptos, which is great, because Aptos haven't really had any like big news since their old CEO left. Let's just see Aptos USD. Let's have a look here. See what this chart did. The chart didn't even move, believe it or not. Still $4.30, $4.31. Let's see what else is happening. Let's see what's happening in the altcoins. I feel like degenning a bit. I don't know about you guys. I feel like degenning. Let's look at your. I see major build to provide. Okay, we know about that. Yeah, not much actually coming. Not much actually coming out on the news waves. Injective up, Sol up, Sonic up, but still like at 33 cents. Crazy cheap. Crazy cheap. Very soon, I think we're going to launch like one-touch investment into like full portfolios. I was working on it actually today. We're doing it with a partner. I'm going to announce it very soon. But one-touch portfolios. I built 4 portfolios today. I built the Cycle Winner portfolio, which is the portfolio we've all been speaking about. I built an ETH bull. I built a Solana bull. I'm building an AI bull. I'm building a meme coin bull. So I'm going to build a whole lot of like one touch invest in the entire portfolio for those of you who want more like chilled portfolios where you don't have to actually get involved and everything else. Let's check the newsroom. Let's just check what's going on. Is there anything pressing that's happening other than Trump warning everybody? Let's just have a look here. Remember, if you want to trade Circle, let's actually see how Circle's doing. Let's quickly just see. So I saw actually, I looked earlier, Circle was actually down. For the first time, like the first time ever, I looked, okay, it's down 3%, but still $250. If you want to trade Circle, if you do want to trade Circle, actually if you want to trade any TradFi, let's actually look at Tesla, because yesterday Tesla was, okay, so it's slightly down, $348. And then let's just look at oil. Well, Brent. We looked at Brent. You can trade all of these on Bybit. Every single one of them you can trade on Bybit. Remember, if you do sign up on this link over here, number one, you get a free Bitfunded challenge. The first 100 people get a free Bitfunded $15,000 challenge, and you get 50% off your stock trading fees, which I think is like a no-brainer. All right, on that note, I shall see you guys again tomorrow. Till then, trade well, my friends.